Ready, we'll go ahead and get started. We're here today to provide an update on a recent hit-and-run incident on August 14th of this year, in which 3 victims were killed and a 4th victim injured. Yesterday, on August 22nd, at approximately 8 a.m., Tavis, T-A-V-I-S, Dunbar, age 34, of Chicago, was arrested in the 5100 block of South Wentworth. That's Tavis, T-A-V-I-S, Dunbar. Dunbar, a convicted felon, is being charged with 3 felony counts of first-degree murder and 1 felony count of attempted first-degree murder. Dunbar was identified as the offender who, on August the 14th, 2022, was driving a vehicle and intentionally struck in multiple pedestrians in the 7000 block of South Jeffery Boulevard in the 3rd District. 3 victims, a 23-year-old male, a 25-year-old male, and a 27-year-old male, were killed. A 4th victim, a 21-year-old male, was also seriously injured. At the time Dunbar was placed in custody, he surrendered to police. This senseless act of violence won't be tolerated in the city of Chicago. And this arrest was the result of hard work done by the men and women of the Chicago Police Department and true community collaboration. From the beginning, community members stepped forward and spoke up to help us hold this offender accountable. Together with the community, we were able to bring justice to these victims and their families. Every day, officers and detectives work to make our city safer for every resident. It's our duty, and we won't ever stop. There is no circumstances make losing a loved one less painful. But we hope that this incident, bringing this incident to justice, bringing this offender to justice, brings some small sense of relief. Chicago Police Department hope that this arrest provides some measure of closure to the victim's family as well. At this time, I'll bring up Chief of Detectives Brendan Denahan for a little bit more detail on this case. And then after that, State's Attorney Kim Fox will come forward, and then I'll come back for questions. Brendan?
All right, thanks, Superintendent. So as the Superintendent mentioned, this incident occurred on the 14th of August, just after 5 in the morning at 7041 South Jeffery. I know there was a pretty horrific video that was released, so people saw the video. And after the murder occurred, when he ran over these 3 individuals, a 4th person surviving, the individual parked the car. Detectives working with patrol officers were able to identify the car, the airbag deployed. We began our investigation. And then, as usual, we talk a lot about technology. We used technology and video cameras from the area to track the offender after he left the vehicle to a certain building, which he went to requesting for help. After that, we were able to talk to some individuals in that building. We received some anonymous tips, and then ultimately we were able to identify the offender. We went back to the establishment where there was individuals in there beforehand where this offender was. There was no altercation in the bar. The bar was extremely cooperative with the Chicago Police Department. There was an altercation on the street afterwards, and as I mentioned, you saw the video which occurred. We were able to get information from the car, like basically the black box, which proved this individual was traveling at a high rate of speed. The gas pedal was completely deployed to the ground, never attempted to tap the brakes when this incident occurred. He turned himself in with a lawyer on Monday morning and invoked his right to remain silent, because I know there's a lot of questions on, well, why did he do this? We do not have that motive right now. He did not talk. As I mentioned, he invoked his right to remain silent. There's also questions, did he do this? Is this a hate crime? Based upon the evidence we have now, working with the State's Attorney's Office, he's charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempt at first-degree murder. We don't have any evidence to support that this was a hate crime at this time, that this individual did this based upon people's sexual orientation, race, creed, or anything else. And that's why he's charged with first-degree murder. I'll bring up the State's Attorney at this time.
Thank you, Detective Denahan. This was a horrific, horrific tragedy here in the city of Chicago. The loss of 3 innocent lives at the hands of Mr. Dunbar. Mr. Dunbar will be appearing as we speak before Judge Susanna Ortiz in Branch 66. The Cook County State's Attorney's Office has filed a motion that he be held without bail given the severity of his crimes and the loss of life that have been attached here. I want to once again thank the Chicago Police Department and the detectives who worked on this case tirelessly over the course of the last couple of weeks, including the work with community members who came forth to hold this man accountable for his actions. The Cook County State's Attorney's Felony Review Unit, working in collaboration with the Chicago Police Department, felt confident in the charges that are brought forth today. Again, as is reiterated before, 3 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of attempted first-degree murder for the survivor of this incident. As the chief said, this act of violence will not be tolerated here in the city of Chicago. We are certainly hopeful that today's charging decision, as well as the bond hearing today, will provide some measure of comfort to the family that the person who has conducted this act has been held in custody. And certainly we want to be able to provide comfort to the community in which this horrific incident has occurred. And lastly, for those who saw this video, who were not there on scene, but what it has done to our city and its reputation, certainly want to be able to demonstrate that we will hold those who commit these acts accountable. With that, I turn it back over to Superintendent Brown.
We'll take a few questions on topic.
Superintendent, was he, Dunbar, the registered owner of the vehicle?
No, he wasn't the registered owner of the vehicle. We spoke to that individual. Obviously, that was part of the investigation, which helped us identify him.
Commander, is there any connection whatsoever between this driver and these people? Or was this apparently a random act?
Apparently a random act, but I'll have Chief Dinahan talk a little bit about what we know about this crowd and this bar scene afterwards.
Sure. Thanks, Superintendent. So what I could tell you is the offender was in the bar establishment prior to the act occurring, and many of the individuals who were fighting on the street were also inside the bar. But there was no altercation between the defendant and those individuals in the bar. There actually was no altercation in the bar. And out on the street, from the video evidence that we have, it does not appear that the people fighting on the street, that this offender was involved in that either. He went to his vehicle, and then he immediately, caused this horrific act.
Can you clarify for me, if you were able to identify the car that night after it happened, why did it take more than a week to get him arrested?
Well, yeah, I think we talked about that originally. So like you said, we did identify the car, but once again, we didn't know who the driver of the car was. It definitely wasn't the owner, and so then the investigation begins. So who was driving the car? And we need people to come forward and help us with that. We go out there and we start collecting video. We collect DNA evidence from airbags, but we didn't know who was driving the car. So it's something the detectives deal with all the time, and it's very difficult because a lot of times we have even major accidents where we do recover the vehicle, but sometimes even if we recover the vehicle, maybe registered to the owner, you still have to prove who was driving the vehicle at that time. And based, in that night in the video we had, you couldn't tell who was driving the vehicle at that time. So it took a while in order to prove who he was, and then build a case that we could actually present to the state's attorney's office where we could secure charges.
Was the vehicle stolen?
No, it was not.
Okay, so the owner let this guy drive it.
That's a presumption that we haven't proven. We don't think we have any complicity at all with the owner and or the driver being complicit with this crime. But what we do have is 3 counts of first-degree murder and an additional count of attempted first-degree murder.